personal development, family tech, and marketing. Of course, I'm your host, Ivan Temelkov. And today I am joined by Mr. James Golden. What's going on, James?
What's up, man? How we doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. Really appreciate it. I'm excited to have you on the show finally. I know we've been chatting for a minute, but finally to get the story out and to hear it all, lay it all on the table. And before we do that, I want to share with viewers and listeners a little bit about your background before we delve into the story. So, James Golden is a respected entrepreneur, pavement preservation activist, published author, podcast host, and speaker. James got his start within the world of business and consulting and entrepreneurship at the age of 19. What started out as a part-time job has turned into a 22-year career and passion for helping municipalities across the U.S. to save taxpayer dollars, maximize their annual budget, increase the conditions of their roadways. God knows we need that.
Yes, sir.
When he is when he is not advocating for roadway preservation, James enjoys helping others in the constant pursuit of becoming the best version of themselves through his Good to Golden podcasting, personal and group coaching initiative. Okay, that was a mouthful right there.
But damn, I need to get that thing streamlined.
Yeah, it was, man. But you have a great story, and I'm a sucker for great stories personally, and it's totally up the alley of this podcast. So let's go way back to 19-year-old James. Tell us where you've been, what you've seen, and how did this 22-year journey evolve up to modern day?
Dude, this is crazy, man. I'm gonna be 43 years old this year. So we talk about that. I guess that's pushing 24 years now.
Wow.
In terms of this whole career thing. So
yeah.
Let me tell you, man, 19-year-old James, there's a lot of there's a few decades here in my story at this point, right? Being 40 plus years old. But I found myself coming out of high school at 17 years old, actually. I was one of those that graduated at 17. My birthday was in the summer type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna tell you, man, I was really just all about playing baseball. We had a very high level school for baseball, state championships. Unfortunately, my team was not able to get that done, but we made it pretty deep. So my senior year in high school, I was really just focused on girls and baseball, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. There was no one at that point in time that was really in my life talking about going to college and James, what are you gonna do after high school and all these types of things. Didn't really have a lot of conversation about that with my parents. I was just out there doing my thing, and I had a girlfriend in high school that coming out of high school, I had a friend of the family, if you will, kind of stop by. He was 2 years ahead of me during that summer, right after baseball season. So it'd have been like, let's just say it was June.
Yeah.
And he had this huge envelope, or not envelope, like case full of like drawings in it, man.
Mm-hmm.
And he was showing these things to me. So they were drafting drawings, like drafting and design. I was like, man, this is pretty cool, man. This is what you're doing. He's like, yeah, man, I work for this engineering company, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, this sounds pretty dope, man. I want to do something like this. Hey, Mom, check this stuff out, man. Can we go find a school for this? And, here locally where I was at, Central Ohio Technical College offered that. So I went into the School of Drafting and Design, man, like a skilled trade 2-year program. Pretty much right out of high school. I started that fall.
Yeah.
So 18 years old, still with the same girl from high school. And we got some great news, honestly. The news was maybe not great for an 18-year-old at the time, or a 17-year-old for her, but man, I found out that she was pregnant.
Okay.
So the bottom line was I took I was a year out of high school and took my girlfriend that was still in high school to her prom, like, gosh, how many months pregnant? 7 months pregnant? 8 months.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So we were that story from a small town graduating class of 100. This is pretty small here. So 19-year-old James, we'll catch up to that pretty quick. 19-year-old James found himself becoming a father, trying to figure out, are we going to get married and all this type of stuff, dealing with those pressures as young kids, both sides, her and I. Right about that time, I had been working out of high school while I was going to school. I was working at Foot Locker, getting prepared in the evenings. I had an internship at the Ohio Department of Transportation. And
Yep.
I was to go for them. I was the intern. So I'll be working with a little bit of drafting stuff, for my school efforts, working with some of the engineers. But mostly I was just scanning documents and copying and stuff like that, man. Let's be honest. But it showed me a little bit of the world of engineering, if you will, what was going on there. And I got an opportunity, that's what life's about, right? Opportunities,
Yep.
so, golden opportunities is something I talk about for obvious reasons. But I'm always cognizant of opportunities and always been a little bit of a risk taker, even in my childhood and stuff like that. But the bottom line was, I got a phone call one day, man, old school. Remember back in the day when you had to like take the phone off the wall and you're talking to it and walk around with an 80-foot cord? It was
Yep.
one of those days.
Yep.
And it was someone, remember I played baseball, right? So playing baseball at that level, we helped the youth, doing some coaching and being a little bit of a mentor in the summer programs. Well,
Right.
one of those coaches kind of got wind of what I was doing after high school and reached out to me and said, hey, I got a guy you need to meet. He's doing this thing called pavement management. He needs some help this summer. I told him that you're working out at ODOT. You might be a good fit to kind of figure some stuff out. He said, I might pay you a little bit better. And by the way, I know you're about to have a kid. That news gets out fast in a small town, right? Even back in the day when there was no internet or social media.
Word of mouth, man.
Word of mouth, man. So the long and short of it was I met this gentleman at a Tim Hortons. He explained to me what this pavement management stuff was. I was making $7.50 an hour at ODOT. And honestly, I really wasn't seeing much of a career there. I mean, like, oh my Lord, it felt like a dark dungeon I got to go into every day. People seem miserable with their lives, working in cubicles. And I was picking up on all this at a young age. This guy was giving me an opportunity to go out on the roadways, evaluate conditions of roads, and I was basically all by myself. I didn't have a manager breathing down my neck, so bottom line is I took the opportunity. I left ODOT, which a lot of people say, well, geez, man, that could have been your ticket.
Yeah.
A state job, benefits, especially having a kid at 19. I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it was like, oh my God, I'm probably gonna be miserable working here the rest of my life. Let's just try something new. So that's what I did, man. So I will fast track it from there. It's pretty self-explanatory. I worked for that man. He was a civil engineer, a professional engineer, a mentor to me, a little bit of a father figure. He and I spent a lot of intimate times as I helped build his company. So I kind of turned into an entrepreneur for him, building his brand and company. After 13 years with him, I was ultimately the director of operations, had a team, managed a team, project management type tasks.
Yeah.
I was a remote employee before that was a term. I basically worked out of my house. I did a lot of data analysis, wrote reports, called clients on the phone. Email was still kind of working its way through stuff.
What year was this too, James? I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
so gosh, this would have been 2000. We'll just call it, the year 2000. 1999 is kind of when I got my start in all this stuff. But so that whole process, man, I was still married. We were getting a lot of credit card debt. We're just living the American dream, man. Hey, for only 6 small pizzas a month that you don't eat, you can afford this. That's how this stuff was all pitched on credit. We built a house at 20 years old. You know what I mean? And it's not because we were making tons of money, bro. I was making $10.50 an hour. It's because we were sold on that idea that we could do it.
What's really interesting, just a quick tidbit that you mentioned about your story, and I want you to keep going, is you talked about credit, is that what a lot of people don't know, believe it or not, in the United States, is that revolving credit is the highest in the United States out of any country in the world, because it's such a huge moneymaker on interest.
Such a moneymaker. And a lot of us as Americans, we were sold on that idea that it's just an extra $300 a month. It's just an extra $200 a month. Like, you can finance whatever you want in America.
Spending money that you technically don't have.
Yeah, that became the American way. It really did in a lot of ways. Because, through the inflation process and time and all that type of things, and marketing became really important. I'm that person, like part of my story, I grew up watching Michael Jordan and Bo Jackson. Those are my idols.
Hell yeah.
Really all into the Air Jordan marketing campaign, the Bo Nose campaign. I was that kid that had to go have this stuff.
Yeah.
And the point was, as an American, as an adult, this was your ticket to getting it without earning it, or really you could do it. This house was, you're spot on, man. This house was just another one of those opportunities. So my wife stayed at home for the most part at the time. We ended up getting married.
Yeah.
Ended up having 2 kids early on. And then about 10 years into that, we brought in our daughter. Our relationship was rocky. Let's just be honest. You got 2 kids getting married.
Yeah.
In my way, I was kind of moving through the world. In her way, she was kind of stuck. She didn't get that opportunity to go do any schooling or anything like that. I completely get it. We just butted heads 24/7. Just wasn't a great relationship, man. And, after 13 years, it was on the rocks. Let's just call it what it was.
Yeah.
Really solidified a lot of stuff for me. All happened within a 12-month period, dude. It was crazy. So December 28th of 2010, 3 days after Christmas, the company brought me into HR. We know how this stuff usually tends to go. Sat down, and remember, this man was like a mentor to me, father me. He just said, "Hey, I'm letting you know I'm shutting it down." I'm like, "You're shutting what down?"
Yeah.
"I'm shutting down the business."
What?
Now, he was probably 60 at this time, maybe 60, 65. I have to really go do the math. But the point was, I'm like, "Oh, are you retiring?" He's like, "No, I'm not retiring." I'm like, "Okay, well, did you sell the company?"
Yeah.
"No, I didn't sell the company. I'm just kind of hanging it up." The bottom line was I was confused. I didn't understand what was going on. I wasn't getting any information.
Yeah.
And basically, I was told, "We're letting everybody else go. James, you're going to run this last project. It's going to lead us through February," because I had a family and medical insurance and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So he at least gave me that. And he said, but we're done. Come March 1, this is done. And I just said, okay. So I left that day. I cried for the first time in my life. Like, what the fuck am I going to do, man? I got 2 new cars. I got a house. We just built another house, by the way. Our relationship, I know it's not that great. My wife's not going to like this. You know what I mean? So the point was that 45-minute drive home opened up my eyes, and it said, "Hey, man, you've been thinking about starting your own company anyway. This is not happening to you, dude. This is happening for you." I know we're both involved with RTA, man. Ed Milet is one of our guys. And that's why groups like RTA are important to me, because when you have other people at that level of success saying things that you've been thinking or saying your whole life, it just hits. We're going to give Ed the credit and the glory for that statement, but bro, I've been thinking that forever. But the bottom line was, I said, this is an opportunity to start my own company. So I go home, I have to explain this. "Hey, I just lost my job, but don't worry, I'm going to start my own company. It's all good." Right?
And your wife's reaction's like, "James, yeah, sure, I believe that," right?
Man, I honestly, bro, we didn't have much of a relationship at that time. So I honestly, because people ask, I don't really remember. I'm not saying she hated on it or embraced it. I just don't have that memory, man. I mean, we weren't in a good spot. So the bottom line was, come March 1, I did that. By June, my wife had left. She kind of decided this wasn't going to work out. By August, September, I was in my parents' basement, because that house that we were over leveraged and extended upon, because we did it again. I told you, we didn't just build a little house. We built a nice large house in the right area. So all of a sudden, man, I was stuck with a lot of credit card debt, a lot of the situation. I just started my company. I told you previously I was a remote type of employee.
Yeah.
Nah, man, I'm on the road now. I'm back on the road performing condition evaluations on roads, knocking on municipality doors to gain business, living the life on the road, dude. I come home on weekends. When it was my time with the kids, I go all in with them. I had a 10-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 1-year-old at the time. And I was living in my mom and dad's basement because I lost my damn house. So I had to short sale it just to get out from under it. Like, thank God I was able to do that. Didn't get foreclosed upon. But, we were sharing stories prior to this conversation, man, like credit score and stuff like that. Dude, I just went rock bottom. Found myself drinking a lot to try to pass through what was really happening in my life. But the silver lining was I gave myself, basically a solopreneur role. I had my own company. I was making more money. I found opportunities to start paying off and getting out of that situation. And really, just working from there. And that's how I kind of got into this stuff, like full time, really, man. I mean, the part-time side of it was at 19, helping that guy out for the summer. Then he saw the value in my work ethic and my knowledge base and how quick I picked up on stuff. So I became this entrepreneur. Then I started my own company, a one-man band, solopreneur. Now I just celebrated 10 years of being in business for myself, and I've got a great team underneath me. And I'm finally starting to come into that CEO role. You know what I mean? But it's taken all this time. The personal side of all this has been crazy. you go through that divorce, you go through shared parenting and all these different things that happen. And you can imagine the butting of heads between families and stuff like that. Meanwhile, they're still trying to get a business off the ground all
Yeah.
at the same time. It was nuts. But I never looked at it as a detriment or like, I can't believe this is happening. I was like, hey man, we got to go. We got to build something better here. There's a reason why all this stuff is happening. I didn't care about instant gratification.
You know, that's one thing that you mentioned that I think is integral, especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you're someone that's chasing dreams and to the rest of society seems like you're on a wild goose chase, basically, because let's face
Yeah.
it, that's what most of society thinks of us, is just that when you know that you are truly meant for something bigger, is when you know, like you said, you in these situations that you found yourself in earlier in life, but you knew that this wasn't the end of it. There was inside of you that told you, no, there's something better out there. This is happening because it was meant to happen. Now I got to rise up to the occasion and seize this moment, seize this opportunity. And because I have more to offer, I'm capable of more. But you know what's really frustrating about that is just that this. The rest of society doesn't believe in you, thinks you're incapable, and it gives that impression off to you to the point to where most of us are brainwashed into thinking that we're incapable. In
Yeah,
fact, humans are some of the most sophisticated creatures that we know in the universe,
that's right.
right?
That's
It's
right.
just we tend to, I feel like, as humans, tend to to sabotage others. And I don't know. I mean, some do it. Most, I think, do it unintentionally, but there's people who do it also intentionally. So when you were talking about like, I mean, and I've been in similar situations, man. You said like you overextending yourself in a house, wife leaving, which honestly I can relate to that because bottom line, most of the divorces that happen in the United States are because money creates discomfort and disrupts the lifestyle
Right.
is why it basically happens. I know my first marriage, luckily I didn't have kids. That was basically more or less the gist of it. It's like
Yep.
couldn't support the lifestyle anymore because you took a giant risk. And it's like, nah, I was so used to living my lifestyle. Can't live it anymore. I don't want to risk. I don't want to sacrifice. But you know what is, this is an entrepreneur. We talked about it in the beginning, is that growth happens from discomfort.
Right.
Because if there's no discomfort, then there's no evolution, there's no progress, there's no change.
There's not, man. I say similarly, there's no story without the struggle in a lot of ways for us as
Yeah.
entrepreneurs. And the struggle is relative. Everyone's
Yeah.
struggle is different. It doesn't have to be a divorce. It doesn't have to be necessarily like a horrible hardship. But
Yeah.
I think that's one thing when you look at a lot of different entrepreneurs out there. There's no story without the struggle. There's no growth without the discomfort. That's one thing we can all get behind.
Yeah. Yeah. So you took the struggles, you made more sacrifices, obviously, after March 1 to just really double down and say, I'm going to do this, right? I'm curious to know, did you ever have a why or a purpose after, especially especially after the separation or the divorce and finding yourself in your parents' basement with,
Yeah.
I think you said a 13-year-old, 10-year-old, and a 1-year-old, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what was there, or can you think one or more things that really just invigorated you, like a why or purpose that said, you know what, you get up every day and it's like, I'm getting up for this. And what was that?
It, it was a chip on my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was one of those things where it's like, you know what? Y'all don't really believe that I'm capable of doing this stuff. So I'm gonna show you. And I knew it wasn't gonna happen overnight.
Yeah.
So I would love to come on here and tell you that, oh, I discovered the why and the purpose and it was for my kids. I don't have that story 10 years ago or,
Yeah.
13 years ago.
Yeah.
I've come into that in the last few years, 100%, man. I've got a new wife now. I've been married for almost 7 years. We've been together for 10. That was one of the things is I found her when I wasn't looking. You know what I'm saying? And wow, like what a huge compliment to my life she's been. She's changed me for the better. The other thing I want to say to you is I wasn't a great dude, bro. I wasn't a great guy.
Yeah.
You go ask my 24-year-old what kind of a dad I was versus my 11-year-old. I mean, it's just reality right now. Now I've got good relationships. When my oldest son, he's killing it at Pave Management Group. He's worked here for 7 years, man. He came in as an intern, works hard. He's my project manager. We got great relationships. but I know there's still damage out there that I've done, and I can't fix it overnight. And so my point is, like, did my wife leave at the time? Yes, she did. Was she warranted to? Probably, but so was I. Like, it's a two-way street. Like, none of us were great people with each other, dude. But I recognize my faults, and it took that incident to really start checking myself and to look in the mirror and say, man, let's do an audit. It's audit time. You're in a basement at 32 years old with no money, and you got 3 kids. So what's going on here? So more of a reality check, I'd say, bro. I like more of a reality check versus purpose-driven and why. But I will tell you, I can point to that chip on my shoulder. When you go through a divorce, you've done it.
Yeah.
Now, remember, for me, I stayed local. So I got married to the girl I dated in high school. We had a kid together, right? So her family, my family, all intertwined at this point. Matter of fact, when I first started my company, my father-in-law was my business partner. That's a whole nother conversation, podcast, story. I will not get into that. That's a good one right there. If anyone talking about business partners and relationships, bro, I've got that on lock. But the point was, it was tough because when you go through that situation, you find out real quick who your friends are, or who you thought like your circle. It doesn't need to be an infinite circle, man. It can be very small, but it matters is who's in that circle. But I had to learn that. I had to learn that, man, there's a reason why I'm not talking to this person anymore. I'm not going to that dinner party anymore. I'm not going out bowling with them anymore. I'm not going to that party anymore. I didn't have any of that. I was literally alone. Like, I felt alone. Yeah. And the only way I knew to cope with that was I was on the road, which was actually positive for me because I wasn't in the same small town. I was out on the road working on my business. And the reality was that chatter kind of gets back to you. And I was like, F this, man. I'm just going to go do it. I'll show everybody. Now, I didn't know it was going to take me 10 years. Okay. But let's be honest.
Yeah.
I also got to a point where when I met my current wife, man, I started getting more relaxed again because I started settling down a little bit better. I found the right woman, man, bringing the families together. I started getting comfortable.
Right.
I've had this peak and valley of like, I got to go because I got the chip on my shoulder. I don't know any way else to do it, by the way. I don't know how to give up. I don't know how to take an L. I mean, I just got to keep going. So that's why I say it's only been up recent last 4 or 5 years, man, where I started getting real clear on purpose, why. It started out with a why, then you transcend it into purpose. I think that's a good maturation process.
Yeah.
And really putting myself out there in a lot of ways that I wasn't doing it before. Remember, I've been doing this pavement management stuff for 23 years, give or take, right? So about 6-7 years ago, dude, I got bored. I lost any types of passion for doing this stuff, man. And it wasn't really up until I hired my one-on-one business coach just last year where I really start to find that passion for what I'm doing again. In the business and how I can transcend my future goals and initiatives, like my golden initiative that we talked about.
Yeah.
Bring it all together, man. So it's been a process for sure, but that's where it's at right now. It's a 10-year overnight success story in a lot of ways. So it'll end up being a 15-year, and when it's all said and done, I got some pretty lofty goals now.
It's I love every bit of that story that you shared, and your story continues to be written because I know, like you said, you're becoming more clear on the things that you want, right, and the things you want to accomplish, goals and dreams. But you said something that's I think really key, as you said, your purpose was a transcendence from a why. Yeah. So why you did this, right, is because it was that chip on the shoulder, as you said, and then you also found out that, hey, I'm really good at this. I really enjoy doing this, what I'm doing, helping municipalities and helping with, because let's face it, we have a shortage of companies and people helping with road work in the United States, huge shortage, and it's not getting any better. In fact, in some smaller, more rural areas, I know, I live in the Midwest, so some areas are not even attended to for that matter. So like, this is huge because what do we all do in the United States? We drive down pavement every day, and some of us multiple times, right? So, but that's really key what you said I wanted to highlight is because you got me thinking, I think I always knew my why. Like when I look back, you know, being a father, that was a 6-year journey for me, believe it or not. But wanting to be an entrepreneur and doing what I do with my business, oh my God, that's been, I don't know, 25 years probably since I knew a why. But the purpose evolved and the purpose became stronger. So that's a key message, I think. And that's a really good point, is this that I think your purpose strengthens and evolves as you make progress and strides that really coincide with your why. Why you're doing it, and here's the purpose of why I'm doing it. So they work in congruence almost, because I had to really think about that one too, because
You're so spot on, man. And I had to do that myself. You know, basically the why was to set myself up for everything that I ever wanted in life. Okay.
Yeah.
So why am I doing this? Obviously, the big word for me is legacy. It's legacy. That encompasses everything to me. Like, I would love to go as far to say that I would love to have, whether it's a brick in the wall or the damn building named after me, you know, at a specific, my local technical college where I started all, I'm on the board there. I help out there. I have a passion for that because I think the skilled trades and 2-year degrees are frowned upon in the United States of America, but these are real great tickets, you know, to the, I'm that person, dude. I took a skilled trade basically and worked through that to become an entrepreneur with, because now we're doing artificial intelligence and data collection. You know, one of my business holdings is with an artificial intelligence development company. I wouldn't have been in all this if I wouldn't have had that skill set. You know what I'm saying? But you know, that's kind of that why is legacy, you know. And then the purpose behind that, really, I found for me was like, man, I love creating value-based connections. You know, I love that. I love talking with people. You know, I love helping as much as I can. I have a real passion for that. And what is the biggest connector in America? It's the roadway network. I mean, let's just be honest. When I had that epiphany, I'm like, oh man, I can create connections. You know what I'm saying? And then I started being, you know, reinvigorated with those passions and how I'm really helping our local municipalities do better with what they've got. Get that story out there. And, you know, that's, like I said, it's only been the last couple of years, though, last few years, where all that's kind of come together, you know? I mean, we don't always really know what you know. And,
you know, one thing that you said about skill trade that I wanted to touch upon, because, and by the way, I think your business is about to skyrocket too. I think it will, and here's why is, so my father actually has a business in the skilled trade space. You know, he was in the union for, man, I guess 15 years or so, maybe even longer, and then ventured out to start his own business that does flooring work, basically. So it's a skilled trade. Manual labor is I think the keyword that people use. Here's the thing. Now more than ever in this digital era, and you know, you've had to immerse into it in the social world. It's primarily, I think society is so immersed into being a keyboard warrior, and they're forgetting that you still got to do stuff with your hands and your brain. And skilled trades are still to this day some of the most respected, but there's a shortage of people who are willing to actually invest and learn about it. And I know this because being involved with my father's business and then your business, like you mentioned, like it's not hard to do pavement work, man. Like, who wants to fucking do that shit? Like, nobody. Like, they'd rather just sit, you know, at a desk, you know, at a computer and crunching away on the keyboard because it's easier, because you don't have to do manual work. The problem with that is just that, and that's how people get fatter and unhealthier, you know, and develop stress and anxiety and body ache problems and shit. So the skill trade, hence why it's called skill trade, is about to have a huge and even bigger demand because there's a shortage, which means, and I think maybe you face this, is just that the issue is, how do I find people? How do I find more manpower that is not so immersed into this digital and social world, which is so intricate to our lives because we live on phones, we live on laptops. You know, it's just part of our way we communicate, right? But too many people get so immersed into it to where they forget about. So I think I personally have a huge respect for what you're doing, man, because you are filling in a void and creating solutions to really big problems. Because if it wasn't for companies like you, we'd have fucking potholes everywhere.
That's right.
We still do, because I know in the state of Missouri, MoDOT is terrible. IDOT, state of Illinois, they're fucking terrible. They're even worse. when it comes to it. So like, who's going to do it? And you know what? People will turn around and say, well, we're not taking care of this. No, it's because we're not investing in it. We're not getting people interested in it. So I think you have a huge opportunity from an educational standpoint to really create more enticement, and people understand that like there's a demand for this and we need to fill this demand. And you've got a tremendous opportunity to do that. But this, right, James, is people still have to take initiative.
You have to take the initiative, man. And that's the thing. So I love everything you just said about the skilled trades, and you're 100% right. Our parents taught us, because I think every parent just wants their kid to do a little bit better somehow. Whatever that means is, again, relative.
Yeah.
A lot of us were told to go to college. That was the only route. And your parents were telling you to go to college. It was the only route. Whether they believed it or not was irrelevant. So what happens? You have this millennial generation that went to college. They're coming out with $60, $70, $80, $100,000 of credit card, student loan debt.
Yep.
Not working within the field they went to school for. Right? This is a serious problem. It's a huge problem. I got two sons. One went to school for a year and said, I can't do this. I said, I told you probably shouldn't have. And now he works at PMG, developing skill sets. Yeah. He was 2 years in Ohio State for marketing and business. He's about to go into the Fisher School of Business. We'll see how that pans out for him, right? But at the end of the day, you have a skilled trade. Look at the Dallas situation with all of the water issues that came from a result. Who's laughing their ass to the bank right now? It's the plumber. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I'm just being realistic here. I've got a friend of mine in Arate, by the way, who got his license in Texas because, number one, they needed more help. Yeah. They needed more help. There's a huge shortage, like you just mentioned, because all it takes is one national disaster like this. We need more help. So he got himself licensed as quick as possible. He's a leader. He's not just a plumber anymore, right? He leads the entire company, a large organization. So he can employ the people, put the pieces in place to get those homeowners their water hooked back up and get that problem solved. But that's what it's all about, is solving problems, and for me, finding the people, it's a huge point. I'm fortunate to this situation where I'm on the data collection side of the house. I'm not actually paving roads. So for me to grow and scale my company, it was the artificial intelligence component. It's, let's take this skilled trade that myself and 5 of my team members that I've had to teach on, how do we leverage algorithms and analysis, machine learning to do that work for us to grow and scale this business. So I'm kind of fortunate on that end. That's how I'm solving that problem. But to your point, we'll think about the paver operator. So there's someone out there right now in America on the back of a paver, running asphalt pavement 2-3 inches thick down a mile, on a highway, right? Right. That is one of the most skilled individuals you will ever meet. Because if you ever look at a paver and how to operate that damn thing, holy shit, dude, it's crazy.
Well, it takes a lot of precision, right?
It takes a lot of precision, knowledge base, skill, experience, all that. But what this person can do is, we talked about this earlier before we jumped on camera, man. Yeah. Teach. That's what we're good at. That's what good leaders do, is they teach. So you can leverage that skill set, that unique skill set that you've developed. And if you have a desire to really hit that next level, you teach. You show others how to do it. And then you're not stuck on the paver until you're 75 years old. You're not stuck doing pavement inspections until you're 75 years old. You know what I'm saying? You're not stuck in your father's case. He doesn't have to go lay the flooring at some point. You just teach the others to do it, manage the process, and become the entrepreneur. So I don't know, man. I'm tracking with you there, but skilled trades, I'm a proponent for that, because I believe what I learned was a skilled trade, not something you go to school for. Analyzing 20 different distresses in asphalt pavements, 19 distresses in concrete pavements, providing roadway conditions and analysis, building pavement models, right? Hey, I got $1 million. How should I best use this money? I mean, you're not going to go find an education program out there for that, but I'll start one. I'll be that guy, because I've now worked my business for 10 years. I've built the team. I've got the scale model. Hopefully this thing's about to take off, just like you said, because we feel it, we believe it. The market said it's there. We've done all that work. Yeah. And now James can be more of that pavement preservation activist. If you go read my LinkedIn title, man, I set it all up for that. That's what's next for James. Yeah. Yeah. And as well as helping other entrepreneurs and business owners, probably in that skilled trade space, to say, hey, how do we maximize what you got? without you having to go do the work. We all have ceilings, you know, as a skilled trade individual. There's only so much square foot of flooring your father could lay. There's only so many miles of pavement inspections as I could perform in a day.
Yeah.
Right. Your first step is to grow. Great. I'll go hire 3 more Jameses to inspect the pavement. But when you talk about scale, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. A couple of things you mentioned I wanted to touch upon. The first one that we're talking about the skill trades is just that. So I was actually in the skill trade when I was younger, from like, I guess it was 1920 till about 23, 24 roughly. So I actually went to school for floor laying, and I used to help my father when he started his business to actually do a lot of jobs with him. So I know what it takes to, be on the saw cutter and cutting tile precisely, and being able to put, mud on the floor and doing it with a trowel and being able to set measurements. Like, I know that. And so, but it's at some point, and I think this is what people don't understand, is this, that you cannot have true fucking appreciation for something that you've earned and accomplished unless you do it with your 2 bare hands.
That's right.
You cannot. And the skill trade is the biggest proponent for that, because guess what? You put in more time, more dedication, more commitment, more precision, more attention to detail. And you know what? That's been fucking scrutinized, man. It has been. Now, because I'm looking now at my father, because especially over the last 5 years, is like people will come and go. And that's a problem, it's in the skill trades, because it's hard to find loyal labor, basically. People who don't just look at it as a job, but they look at it as a growth opportunity. People that want to learn something that's a very niche, very in demand. And that's what I'm saying. Then I think what you're on is it's a time bomb, but in a good way. It's just a time bomb.
Well, I like what you're saying there too. And one thing that I did, probably I said earlier on, because I had to build a team. I had to build a team to say, hey man, I'm going to teach you how to do this. So I don't have to, number one, I don't have to do it again. So I don't have to go to spend 2 weeks in Houston, to work. This is 10 years ago, basically, before we had technology in place to help us out. But what I try to do is get that establish those core values, like to show these folks that were coming in. And I had my fair share of turnover. You can weed them out real quick, but said, hey, you have purpose here. You're not just someone looking at cracks in roads and jotting them down. I let them know very quickly, like, this is the payoff. This city is going to look at the information you provide and say, wow, I didn't know that. Or check out these trends and insights. Or now I can save an extra $8 a square yard by doing X, Y, and Z. So I wanted them to see that there was real buy-in, or establish that buy-in and show them that the value of what they were doing was tenfold. It's not just a number. At the end of the day, these people are looking at roadway cracks and deficiencies, documenting them into a system. Then they go on to the next one. But if they have an understanding of what that is really doing, how does James work with that data? How does the city engineer interpret that data? How does the public works director execute on that data? How does city council perceive that data? All of a sudden, they're like, man, I'm not just a pavement inspector, am I? No, sir, you're not. You're actually the most vital component to our business.
Well, something you just said, everything you just said in the last probably minute or so, where you were explaining the intricacies of this educational program, is your golden goose.
It is.
Literally. Now, just putting that into practicality is the ultimate test, basically. And that's the ultimate opportunity, ultimately being given that opportunity. But I love the fact that you're supporting the skill trade. You are in a skill trade, obviously, because I think now more than ever, and I think it's about to increase, because there's more and more people who are trying to find shortcuts to, building a life, making more money. And you've heard Andy and Ed, and Ryan talk about this, right? That, nothing that's worthwhile is going to take 5 minutes, or it's going to be an overnight success. It's going to take a long ass fucking time. And like, even you said so yourself, it's taken me 20 plus years to really bring, like, to where you're in a place, like you even said, hiring a coach to really help you, like, extrapolate everything that's in your head and kind of compartmentalize it, and then really have some clarity and direction of like how to go about these things, right? And in a timely fashion also. But point being is 20 plus years.
I know, man.
And
It gives me goosebumps, man. Probably I'm freaking bald and, the head's all, I wear a hat, man, so you're not staring at the shiny head, but, you're spot on. It's all that time, dedication, effort to it. When you talk about shortcuts, dude, there's no shortcuts. Now, depending on how much capital you've got day one, how much knowledge base you have, and how hard you're willing to work, you can reduce the amount of time that maybe someone else that doesn't have that has, right?
yeah,
There's a shortcut. The only shortcut that I see in real business are high performers and action takers that maybe hire a coach who's done it, who's been there and done it, because they can shortcut pitfalls. They're not going to shortcut your business or your route to success, but they can help you avoid timely and costly things within your business. So that's my takeaway from my coaching and the groups that I'm involved with. I'm like, man, now I'm really am on the fast track to becoming the real CEO of my business and go out and do the other things that I want. And that's like the Golden Collective, my Facebook group, man. It's just kind of working through on a free model to say, hey, man, how can I kind of help mentor some things here? It's more like mentorship. And then through the coaching effort, it's like, that's what I ultimately would love to start doing. But I've got work to do at PMG. I'm not going all in on a coach. I'm not trying to be some guru. But at the end of the day, I kind of am. You know what I mean? I kind of am. So I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just saying, like, I absolutely can help individuals, but I've got to see this through so that my company, my legacy, that why is fulfilled. So then purpose can come into play here and down the road. But I'm taking action against those things. Like talk about initiative. So I know that you're right. We are about to blow up. I mean, we already kind of blew up in a lot of ways, to be honest with you, but it's really going to explode. So what James is over here saying is, I'm 43 this year. Where am I at 48, 50? I probably have someone running this business for me. You know what I mean? I've got an operator in here taking care of things for me because I will teach them all this stuff on my side. And it's like, where do I see myself next? Well, you know what? I talked about connection, creating those value-based connections and helping others to succeed. Like I say, hit their next level of success. But I have to take action now against that because like you just pointed to, 22 years to get to here.
Yeah.
If you can't just show up on the phone one day or in a DM on Instagram like, hey, what's up, man? You need a coach? I'm a coach. Okay, we'll prove it. You know what I'm saying? So if I want to put that out into the universe, I got to start taking action on it right now and build that up over time, right? So that's all I'm saying.
There were a couple of things. That's absolutely true. That is absolutely true. But I want to actually allude to something that you mentioned is that, like you were saying, I don't want to become some guru, but in a way I kind of am. And here's what, because I've done this and I keep striving for this, is that I'm a huge proponent for education because I believe that, I think I mentioned this to you in a discussion before we got on camera, is that I think some of the best leaders in the world are teachers. Yes. And I wholeheartedly believe in that now more than ever. So I try to lead with that route. I try to teach people. So, I've been in the digital and the marketing space for 25 years, but I've always done that approach. And now more than ever, I'm tripling down on it as much as I can. But as you were talking about it, is that how do you become an innovator and a disruptor and a thought leader? Mm-hmm. Simple. You educate. You educate people and you give them, in fact, even in sales, sales is really education. You're giving people different perspective on how to solve a solution through education. And I, even with some of the clients that we work with as well, that's what I do. I said, well, have you thought about this? Here's how I would do it. It really gets them thinking. And that's how they get to thinking, this from prospecting, right? Is that, how do I, it positions you as a thought leader. It positions you as a subject matter expert because you just shared some value to them that's going to help them solve a problem. And people are looking for a solution to a problem or just value that they can absorb. And that's what you're doing with your education program. So James and PMG is a disruptor, is an innovator, is a leader, is a thought leader, is a subject matter expert, whatever other title, because you're doing it, but you're doing it because you want to create impact, right? Because you want to change the way things have been done traditionally, because as we just talked about over the last 40 minutes, is that so much in your industry has been done traditionally because it has been settled for. And I think municipalities have just said, you know what, as long as the tax dollars are being funneled, we'll just keep doing shit the same way. Maybe fine tune here and there. Keyword maybe, right? Because you know, at the municipality level, how much improvement, technological improvement there is, because you talked about AI, and how often does it happen? Almost never. I feel like municipalities are 10, 20 years behind the times.
Well, they are. I mean, the pandemic forced them to go to Zoom-based calls and conference calls. Because before this, bro, like if I really wanted to fight for an opportunity or for a project or add that value, I had to show up on site. Like these had to be meetings. You know, so I looked at my travel budget in 2020 versus 2019.
Yeah.
2019, there's some videos of me on LinkedIn for sure. That's where I do a lot of my content.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's where my decision makers live and where my audience lives for value.
Yeah.
So I called it the 2019 PMG tour. You know, James is out here on tour in all these different areas. And what I would do is I would go meet with the client.
Yeah.
Or I would go close out a project or whatever I do. And I would just drive around. I like to drive around communities and see what's going on, the local roadways for sure, and neighborhoods. I would go find an opportunity to talk about something happening on a road. You know, so, hey, I'm out here in Branson, Missouri today. I saw this situation right here. You could best benefit from a Cape Seal, you know, whatever. And I talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because that's that perceived value. And people like that. I'm not out here talking about my business. I'm not trying to, hey, call me and, you know, we're going to get this thing taken. I mean, it's just all about putting that value out there. But it was very specific because now I'm in that direct location. You know what I mean? And then in 2020, you got the pandemic where we're not doing any of that. But I found other ways to add the value. And what was really great is finally, web-based meetings, conference meetings started to become a little bit more of a norm because municipalities had to pivot. They didn't have a choice. Like pivot means a lot of different things. They had to pivot to run their meetings efficiently. I still have agencies I work with. They work from home still. And now it's common. I can send them a schedule. They didn't know what the schedule link was. Hey, here's my link. I don't know what this is. Okay, great. Well, let me walk you through it.
Yeah.
You know, but you're right, man. They are traditionally at least about a decade behind. And this is true by just going into their offices every day like I was doing. And they'll tell you they have better technology at home. They have better internet speed at home than they do at the office. So it just is what it is. But we're starting to see that pivot a little bit there. They're recognizing some additional needs. Now I don't have to spend $1,500 in a travel budget to go pitch a city. I can do it right here on camera. It allows
that's
me
just
to,
it.
Yeah.
That's just it, as you mentioned, is that because you've embraced AI, is this that, and I think this is why, I mean, 2020 was a challenging year. I mean, for me, it was a growth year, the biggest year in my business. And so technically my 4th year in business. And you know, that was exactly it, is because I think too many companies and too many people, like you just described, you got better technology at home than you do in the office. Well, that's a problem. If you've got better technology at home and outdated technology in the office, it is inefficient. It's counterintuitive. You got to upgrade or die. And that's literally what happened to a lot of companies. So the 2020 and the COVID era really, I think, tested a lot of companies, not just municipalities, companies of all industries, of all verticals, of can you pivot? Do you need to pivot? And if you don't pivot, could this be the determining point for your business, your own demise? So a lot of companies, I think, actually self-sabotage themselves and they created their own demise because they were unwilling to step out.
I can take this camera right now. I'm in a courtyard.
Yeah.
I'm in I call this a temporary office location.
Yeah.
Because I took this almost 3 years ago on budget and just the space to bring my team together because we were working remote for the most part. And I was like, oh, you know, let's build an office culture. Let's blah, blah, blah. I mean, that'd be fun. That line of thinking was valid. It was legit.
Right.
So I didn't need anything fancy. I just needed a place. And this was it. My point is I can take this camera and show you 3 for lease signs right now.
Yeah.
What you just said. These were more along the lines of brick and mortar. Come on into my office or come on into my storefront or whatever. And I got something for you. They're gone. They're gone.
Yep.
This happened within, this was like, I would say by fall of last year, give it 90 days because most businesses aren't putting up the reserves. They don't know how to run a business. cash flow, all these other things, spinoffs that we can talk about, which is always fun, right?
Oh yeah.
But it's like they're out of business, and you hit the nail on the head. You either innovate or you die. And in a lot of cases, it was just pivot.
Yeah.
Pivot is innovation. And
Yep.
I've got great stories from those that you would think, man, they were going to be in really big struggles. They still had their best year, or they were able to weather the storm because they were doing virtual appointments, you know, or anything like that. Anything they could do to scrape and scrounge, especially that restaurant industry, the online ordering, not just relying on Uber Eats or Grubhub, you know what I mean, to find other ways. Those are the ones that I value, because when you can't come into my restaurant and order from me, you're taking away my revenues. And when the government eventually says, I tell you what, we'll let you back in there, but you can only do 40% capacity or whatever the numbers are.
Yeah.
They're already running on thin margins. We already know this. That's how the business model is set up for that industry.
Yeah.
They're not 60% margins like a marketing industry, or 30, 40% margins like an engineering firm. You know, they're on grocery stores, man. They had to stay open. Them damn things run on 2% more profit margins. So the bottom line is, I love the innovation and pivoting and watching it. But at the same time, we saw those that either A, didn't have the capacity, they didn't understand. That's true.
Yeah.
And those are the ones I really feel bad for, because there were business owners that they were great businesses in terms of like adding value to their communities. Just didn't understand how to catch up to technology, to leverage it right. Then there was others that would just turn a blind eye to it, right? Just, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to worry about it. Then it's 30 days, and it's 60 days, and it's 90 days. Then they're out of business, you know?
Yeah. So, you know, it's really interesting. So a couple of things you mentioned there that are so key to business is that, I mean, a lot of business, all business is at the mercy of technology. It really is, because technology is used for communication. Hence, we're on Zoom doing a podcast right now, right? So, but what's really interesting about that, and I'm going to be pushing out something probably tomorrow that's really going to allude to this, but I've been a technology proponent since I was 14 years old, 26 years, and I've really embraced that. And what you were talking about is like pivoting and understanding that you got to be innovative, you've got to be disruptive, you've got to embrace technology in any form or fashion that's applicable to your business, literally. And that's what you've done with PMG, with your business, is like AI, and just, I mean, you've got an office and, just digitizing it basically, because what's the alternative? There isn't. There isn't one. And so,
man, it's like in our space, I saw an opportunity. This was 2016. I started really thinking about, if I don't make a decision right now, I will die, because technology will surpass. So I had two options. I could have jumped all in on, there are specific types of equipment out there, camera-based, laser-based, that you can go invest into. You're staring at from $250,000 to $500,000 investment, and now you're tethered to a vehicle. That vehicle becomes the data collection capture point, right?
Yep.
So I'm in Ohio. I pick up a job in your neck of the woods and say St. Louis. I got to drive that fucker all the way out there, or I got to trailer it. I got to get it there.
Yeah.
Okay. I said, you know what? We ain't doing that. We're not doing that, man. So I strapped up a GoPro camera that was laying around the office to I had a Honda Accord, dude, at the time. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Come a long way in four or 5 years. But I mounted a specific way. I hit record, driving down the road, brought the video back on my monitor, looked at it, and said, holy shit, man, I can see everything. It's HD, high definition.
Yep.
Like, I don't have to just use high definition for watching Netflix now. I can look at pavement roads. No one cares about that, listen to this, except me. Like, I'm the only one who wants to stare at high roadways in high definition. So I looked at it and said, man, there's a standard I have to adhere to or to follow to identify different distresses. Because be honest with you, man, that there's a lot of different types of cracks that occur out there. They're not all the same. They all mean different things, man. Yep. So our job is to identify and recognize it and quantify it, right? So I'm like, shit, man, I can see it all. Holy cow. Let me create a process. So I did that. And I talked to a couple of my staple clients that would take a risk with me and say, hey, instead of me doing it this way, I think I can do it this way. Will you take a look at this with me? And they're like, yeah, okay. Yeah, we can see that. That makes sense. You can perform the analysis on screen instead of out there. I said, yeah, we can. Just let me do it. We'll do it both ways. So time, effort, initiative, all that stuff, man. We did this project, boots on the ground.
Right.
looking at videos, and the score was within 2% margin of error. And that was like the boom, that was the green light right there, man. We're going all in. Let's get everybody outside of this shit, because now guess what? The person that was out in the field had to have the skill set to document.
Yeah.
Now that person just has to drive a car and hit record on a GoPro. You don't have, the expertise was now in the office.
Yeah.
That was step 2. And then 2 years ago, I said, F all this noise. I need AI. So that was the next iteration, was how do I get a machine to think like James, to pick up on everything all by itself? Yep. And we're at like 100 and some thousand images currently machine learned. We're getting there. We're almost done. It's really cool.
You know, speaking of AI, one thing I wanted to mention to you, since you were talking about the GoPro, is, because again, we're talking about innovation, is imagine that GoPro or a supplement of it to be able to create an interactive component to where you could say, okay, prospect, right? Here's our machine out there. Let's tap into the live stream, and I can maneuver this around so you can see how we're actually assessing this in real time.
Real time.
And they're going to look at that and like, holy shit, James, nobody can do that. And why this is so important is because how was it done traditionally? Right?
On the ground. Yeah. Walking around out there. You
exactly.
Had to for months to see what the scores were. Dude, and that's exactly like in business, you got to be playing chess, man. You're playing checkers, you're done. You can have some wins. You and I can go through some checkers right now. It'll be 50-50, right? We play chess. That's going to be a long ass game. And your sole mission is to figure out your next several moves, just like mine is. That's business. Because and because what I'm trying to do is stay one step ahead of my competitors. So my competitors are the engineering firms that have kind of grown. They've got a decade on me in terms of size, reputation, and that, because they do other things. But they're the ones with all that investment cost. They got the antiquated camera systems, laser systems out there that I don't even think are really necessary. They serve a point to some degree, but I'm over here like, wait a second, you capture it? I say, yeah, the GoPro captures it. That's all it needs to do. Yeah. The AI analyzes it. That's where all the money was being spent in development.
Yeah.
You know, whether you use a smartphone or it doesn't matter. Yeah. Does it pick up a quality image that we can process? Yes. And then when I show that these clients they're just amazed. Then I give them the price on it, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, you can afford this right now.
Yeah,
you don't have to go ask for your council money. You already approved professional services. I created a business model on professional services.
Yeah,
you know, all of our cities have a dollar amount they can spend up to. There's a threshold where
you said something that I want to touch upon, because this is really key right now, especially coming out of this, crazy ass year 2020. Is that you said these big companies had brand equity and, fairly sizable investment budgets and such, right? To where they could dump crazy ass fucking money for equipment if they wanted to. But here's the thing. What's proving now more than ever with small business is that tactical and practical approach will always win. And this literally I'm a huge fan of, is because as the small guy that likes to play chess, not checkers, good point there, that likes to play chess, is I'm like, watch me do this differently and watch me create impact. Because it's exactly what I did in 2020 when I doubled down on personal branding and social video, when everybody was like, this motherfucker is spending crazy ass time on shooting videos of him talking on a mic or walking and talking. What did I do? It created conversations. What did that do? It created more contracts. What did that do? More money in the bank.
That's right.
And so I absolutely love about the fact that you've embraced the necessity of technology and evolution and disruption, and you continue to thrive on that with your business model and understand that, what I'm doing now, probably tomorrow is going to be outdated. So what's the next thing I need to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, especially in the skill trade, man, let's face it. In the skill trade, because the skill trade is shit. Well, the skill trade still is like, okay, there's this new thing. We're going to do it for a little while until it's still hot, right? But then it's like, okay, we're like 10 years behind now because there's something new or 5 other things or 10 other things. This is why I think that the approach that you have with technology at the epicenter of your business, with the GoPro thing that you described, is so innovating, and it's only a matter of time that major municipalities get a sniff of this and be like, shit, we can do something like this. Might cost a little bit more, but not by much, or maybe the same price or cheaper, but more effective.
Yep. But it's
more effective. But
yeah,
I think
that job done faster, man. It's all about that. So I look at, if we're going to leverage technology and we're going to scale the company, right? Yeah. And we're going to create more impact. That's the biggest word for me. How many miles of roadways can I impact? Roadway miles are my currency here. You know, there's a direct correlation to how many roadway miles I've scanned and what's in the bank. 100%, man. And every business needs to find that. You know, what is your currency?
So I just Googled this. Actually, there is, as of 2017, there's 4.18 million miles of road in the United States.
4 million miles, man.
4 million, which means that even when you do retire from your business, there'll still be more road to cover. Actually, even more, because we're constantly building.
That's right. And now, here's another fact, just because I know it.
Yeah.
That 4 million miles of road, 1.8 million of it is considered to be in poor condition. 42%.
So nearly half is in poor condition.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, dude, we're tracking the same way. So all I know to do is just how to leverage my expertise, create a great product that's going to get the job done. Because my goal in the next, like I told you, like 5 years, is that those companies with that brand equity that you had mentioned, that I've already kind of put on, you know, last year, they can still go provide the service for their client, but guess whose AI algorithm they'll have to use to process the tech. You know, they'll capture it any way they want. It'll run through my algorithm to produce the result.
Right.
I don't care where. I don't care if you drive it, I drive it, P&G drives it, my mom drives it. I don't care. Just capture the damn thing and load it and let's go. Because the big play, man, and this is what you talk about. What's next? The big play is we go through the Google model. You want to know what that is? Hey, I'm going to give you an interactive map of all your road conditions with data for free.
That's amazing.
You'll watch it happen.
You know, well, here's another fun fact too. Actually, I had to just verify to be sure, but the average bridge in the United States is 43 years old with a lifespan of 50.
50. Yep.
Okay, so that means you've got about a 7-year window before this fucking thing collapses, or sooner.
And we'll see more of that happen, unfortunately. You know. Yeah. And so a couple things I want to throw out to add value to anyone that's interested in this that listens to the podcast, man, is the American Society of Civil Engineers. Every 4 years, they produce a report. And that report is a grade card of all of America's infrastructure, bridges, roads, broadband, you know, all of these things that are important to us as consumers, taxpayers, and residents of this country. They produce it every 4 years. Their grade card just came out in the last couple of weeks, and you can see all of those things.
Yeah.
You can look at it state by state. You can look at it by category. It's actually really great information. I was actually very fortunate, man. Prior to this, I actually jumped on a guest spot as a resident expert in infrastructure for a piece that's coming out, talking about all of these things, because the number is staggering. The number is $17 trillion. There's $17 trillion worth of backlog out there. What that means is those are roadways that are at or below a specific threshold. That's the dollar that we'd have to have right now to fix all of it tomorrow. We can't do that. That's not going to happen. So even if a large infrastructure bill gets pushed out, it's just crazy. I apologize. $17 million of backlog.
17 million.
Backlog. Just in roadways.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention on that, since you said this, is that this is precisely what we talked about a few minutes ago, is that there's about to be a much higher demand for companies like yours, because this has been a problem that has been overlooked for decades and decades. And you know what happens when you overlook a problem once? Maybe it's okay. Twice, you should probably attend to it. Third time is like, oh, fuck, we got to fix this. But guess what? The longer it remains a problem, the more expensive it becomes to fix, which means that, and you said you were coming out to our neck of the woods, like in St. Louis, is just that, Missouri is pretty fucking bad when it comes to roadways. We've got a lot of potholes and we've got a lot of bad bridges because, let's face it, especially in the St. Louis and the vicinity area, at least in the last 25 years, there's always construction. Always. I don't think there's been one single highway that has not had construction at any given month, let alone a day, let alone a year in the last 25 years. And you know what? A lot of that construction goes for months, and some even goes for years, the reason I'm saying this is you're looking at $17 million of potential business. Now, even if you were to capture a third of that, that's still a sizable capture in the market.
Yeah. We have a target on where we think we can get to pretty quickly in terms of revenue based on all of these factors that you're saying. I'm also in that R&D game, man. I mean, one of them degrees on my wall, I mean, it is what it is. I got an IT degree, so I love the data mine. So me being payment management, looking at combing through data is fun. I'm one of those weird dudes that loves Excel. I love being in there and getting into my element, man, building 5-year plans for cities and stuff like that. But we've done a lot of the analytics and the research and looking through things. And we have a pretty good idea of where we can go as P&G with our current offering. And it's exciting is the point to it. It's not about, the money is, as an entrepreneur, you get excited about those things because now we can probably start talking about joint ventures, mergers, acquisitions, maybe, getting involved with a large A&E firm because now P&G is really on the radar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But my point is, it just tells me how much impact. That's my favorite word. Yeah. Because I'll tell you right now, you talk about impact. What's really sad is you hit the nail on the head. St. Louis, every single municipality in our country is getting ready. It's March 18th. They're putting all the proposals out to go do contract work for roads.
Yep.
Now, whether they're doing the right thing or the wrong thing, they're still spending the money. They're still spending the money, and it's billions of dollars are being spent. And what do we see? We still see bad roads. So there's got to be a breaking point, and it's coming. It is coming very quickly. And what we want to be able to do is to be first in line, like a first responder, to say, look, you finally have recognized the problem and acknowledged it. Thank God, because a lot of city engineers don't want to do that, or public works directors, whatever. And it's not because that they don't want to improve. It's because, man, their job's on the line. You know what I'm saying? Like, they really are. Like, I understand the fight and the struggle all the way around. But my favorite client, my avatar, is someone that says, hey, I recognize there's a problem. I know we can do better. Can you help provide the data to help tell that story so my council, my city, my constituent understands what we're trying to do? And then it's a match made in heaven, man. And that's what we're out doing every day. But that's the sad part for me is I see billions of dollars spent anyway. It's budgeted for right now. It's going to be spent. And you and I are still going to be complaining about roads when it's done.
I've absolutely enjoyed the conversation, and I know we could probably go endlessly because there's just so much value. But just to cap it off, real quick, obviously as a veteran in the entrepreneurial space, I want to kind of put you on the spot for a second, and I would love to hear your thoughts on, as an entrepreneur, as a dreamer, as a go-getter, was there one thing in especially your last 20 plus years of your journey that has really stood out to you as a constant, as an advice that maybe you would give to other people that are dreaming or, have visions and goals? What would that be?
Oh yeah, dude. If not you, then who? I mean,
love that.
It gives me goosebumps every time I say it. That's a recurring thing for 20 plus years, not just last week. That's something I read in a book yesterday. Dude, if you're a dreamer, go ask all my kids or my real close kind of network, man. You're going to learn it. You're going to see it. My tagline is dream big, work hard, become legendary. Man, if you don't paint the vision, there's nothing to work hard for. And if you're not working hard for it, you will not be able to leave a legacy. That's just how I look at it. So the way I look at this is this pavement management stuff, dude. It came to fruition several years ago. Like, if I'm not going to have the passion for it, then who is? Someone has to do it. But it took this body of work and time and putting all the systems in place. So now I can really start getting out there and having that impact. So take that one, man. If not you, then who? I mean, it's kind of cliched in the entrepreneurial space, but you're right, man. I've been doing this for a minute, and it's something that I hung my hat on almost every day 10, 15, 20 years ago. So
I love that. And last but not least, throw out some social handles, websites. How can people connect with you in the social space?
So if you just go to jamesgolden.me,
Okay.
that is a direct link to my personal site. You will find everything you can about me on there. You'll find my bio. You'll find my headshots, my PR stuff, man. The articles I've been posting in. I'll post up this interaction. My Instagram, LinkedIn, all those things. But to throw a couple out there, on Instagram, I'm very active on my Golden Collective initiative. So at James Golden with the A, like a gold, obviously. On LinkedIn, just go search James Golden Pavement. I will pop right up. If you're interested in see how I interact on the LinkedIn platform and the articles and things I've written about that.
Yeah.
Pavementmanagement.com. It was an expensive domain a few years ago, but I took advantage of it. That will lead you right to our company's website, so you can get a little bit more information on what that company does. Yeah. And then finally, jg3consulting.com. I'm James Golden III. I resurrected that. That was my initial company that I founded 10 years ago. I recently resurrected that for my kind of coaching initiative that I'm working on. Stuff like that, man. So,
James, man, absolutely amazing conversation. Love learning about your journey. Love learning about what you're about to do. And I want to say congratulations to everything. Well earned, well deserved. You've definitely, I'm a huge admirer for anybody who, paves their way and stops at nothing, because they know that they have more inside of themselves in terms of potential and impact that they can create. So congratulations and everything. And thank you for jumping on the podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate you 1,000,000%, man. Anytime I get an opportunity to chop it up with high performers like yourself and other entrepreneurs, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. And you hit on something very, very good, man. Pave the way. That's one of my taglines for PNG. I put that